Hi, good evening. Jacob Field here. We're a couple of minutes away from getting started. Just to confirm before I do, we will wait until 8 o'clock and everyone to arrive. But those of you who are here early, thank you for jumping in. Could you please confirm if you can see and hear me correctly? So there should be a couple of meerkats in front of you and peeking around, and also my audio coming through. If I could just confirm in chat over to the right-hand side of your screen that you can see and hear okay, that would be great. Good evening. My name's Jacob Field. I'm the founder of Ripe House, and I'm so pleased and pumped to have everyone joining me tonight for Pinpoint Predictions 2016. I have just jumped in and done a quick sound and visual check with those of you who arrived early. So thank you for coming and arriving early. There's been a lot of all of you have said that everything is okay in terms of audio visual. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you are having problems with audio visual, sometimes for the first few seconds on a new slide, things might be a little bit fuzzy. You can click on the reconnect button at the bottom of your page to refresh. If that doesn't work, then you can refresh the browser window in itself and then potentially close and reopen the webcast window as a last resort. The software is optimized for Google Chrome. And yeah, if things are a little bit blurry, you can also move the browser size up and in or out, and that might refresh things as well. But just jump in if you're having any audio visual problems at any time, and we'll try our best to resolve. I've got a little poll there going on the right-hand side, so there will be from time to time a little bit of question and answer going on, just to get a feel for where you guys are currently living, where you're looking at potentially investing, and potentially what you're looking at investing in. That can help guide some of the suburbs that we can look at dynamically tonight. We are going to be speaking to our soon-to-be released, so this week, our Pinpoint Predictions 2016 February edition report. We've gone across the nation. We've been researching for putting together an extension of the software to help you research, but we've been analysing some data and research recently and put together 11 LGAs across the country that are absolutely outstanding candidates for growth. Some of them have great yields, some of them suit renovation, etc. Some of them are higher price point, some of them are lower price point, but we don't leave you with the LGA. We take you to the suburb and on a journey all the way through the streets to target the individual streets and properties and how to potentially appraise them. So we don't leave you with an LGA recommendation. We don't make blanket statements around how Sydney might be at a certain point in the clock. I'll show you how we can take a deeper dive in and see the exact LGAs that even in somewhere like Sydney are still sitting at 8 or 9 o'clock on the property clock and got some great potential growth through to their peak in the cycle, and also how to identify those LGAs in Sydney, for example, that are way around at 2, 3, 4 o'clock and firmly in the slowdown and trough phases. So that's what it's all about tonight. It's cutting through a lot of the media hype, a lot of the expert in the, or in inverted commas, expert opinions, etc. out there that might rely on secondhand research that's then collated and a time delay occurs. It might be talking about last year's numbers. Everything that you see tonight will be based on live data as of today. We've been spending a few months building out the software to give you the keys and open up the hood, so to speak, and provide the actual data to today and not for last quarter or last year. And this helps us make clear and concise decisions. So let's jump in. Before we do, the quick poll there, 57% of you in New South Wales, a huge amount of New South Wales listeners tuning in. I've got to say I'm really stoked with how many of you are here tonight. It's a great turnout. Obviously, a lot of you looking to invest in 2016 and want to get an inside scoop potentially on some great areas to look at. We're not just going to be beating the drum of potentially other local government areas or suburbs that you have heard of. There will be a variety. I'll be touching on one that has had a lot of other investors through Ripe House looking at it, one that's emerging and one that might be a little bit undercover, that is a great fundamental metrics-based pick, but the other opinion and interest from other investors is not quite there yet, so it might be a little bit of a bonus one to watch area in 2016. So 20% of you in Queensland, 15% in Victoria, 1% in Tassie. Shout out to Tassie. I'm calling from Elizabeth Street in Hobart at the moment. We've got 3% in South Australia, 3% in WA, no one in the Northern Territory, and 4% in the ACT. So a nice big shout out to everyone across the country. Let's move along. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Tonight will be around revealing our growth locations for the remainder of 2016. We're not talking about suburbs that are only that are looking at 10 or 11 or 11 or 12 on the property clock and might only have a short run to go. These are suburbs that we feel are going to have great growth over the next 1 to 3 years. We're going to be pinpointing the exact streets and properties within these suburbs. So we're not going to leave a recommendation at an LGA. When I say LGA, I mean a council area. We're going to take you through the whole journey down to identify actual properties. And we're going to talk about how you can potentially achieve, above and beyond normal suburb growth, how you can potentially achieve 21.9% more capital growth in the same suburb. So we're going to teach and talk about how you can find the exact streets that may lead growth for the suburb forward. So in the background there on the right-hand side, we were featured on the cover story of the September issue of Money magazine. We used our software and data and research to select the 133 best streets in the country for capital growth in the short to medium term. That's now been wrapped up and improved into our Pinpoint Predictions report. So we're actually just tipping 100 pages of in-depth analysis. We know that you guys like to digest information in different ways. So for any individual LGA or suburb or street, we provide information in text format, in commentary, opinion, but also in data, visuals, and spatial. So lots of variety of presentation information. So however you feel more comfortable digesting, it's there for you in that report. So look out for that. It's coming out this week. And that's what we'll be referring to tonight for some of our predictions. Just a little bit about me to start with, and I've seen a lot of familiar faces. Jean just mentioned she's from Alice Springs in Northern Territory. Hi, Jean. A lot of familiar faces and names tonight, so shout out to all you guys. A little bit about me for those that you don't know. I have been investing since the early 2000s. I would describe myself as a DIY property investor. I prefer to empower myself with research and understanding and digging a little bit deeper and trying to work out the whys, challenging myself and I suppose progressing on the journey. So Ripe House is something that I founded in 2011 to help myself and other DIY property investors help each other to research and buy properties together. Currently own properties all over the country, and a few of the recent purchases I haven't actually visited. It's been trusting the data, building up the relationships on the phone, and buying sight unseen in a lot of cases. So let's jump in. We're here to talk about potential capital growth areas, and yield is a big part of that for a lot of you guys. We did this going back to 2014, early 2015, and we have got a top 10 capital growth blog post if you wanted to dig through that, which nominated 10 suburbs. We had a 9 out of 10 hit rate for growth in those suburbs across 2015. We could have gone through and picked some booming markets that were right close to the top of the cycle, but that's not really how we do things. We look at timing the market, potentially hitting on a suburb that's at 8 and 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock on the property clock. And then that's in a prime time for growth in the very short term, so 2015, but looking like it's going to have great growth through 2016 and 17. So, we could have picked a raft of Sydney suburbs that may have been right at the peak of the market, but we found one suburb in that report that was in Queensland, 16.4% gain in Noosa Heads last year. That was a pick outside of Brisbane. 17.9% gain in Katoomba, outside of Sydney, and the diamond in the rough there in ACT, which was off a lot of people's radar. It just shows that you can dig a little bit deeper. You can't write a whole city off just because of one generalisation. You can dig a little bit deeper and find 12.7% returns in an ACT suburb. I keep forgetting the name of this suburb because it does, I can't pronounce it properly, but it does start with Gunny. If someone's online from Canberra, it'd be great. If you can let me know. Yeah, it's in the top 10 capital growth report on the blog there. But an ACT suburb that had 12.7% growth over 2015. So it's just a little bit of a taster of some of our track record and how we're going to start leveraging and improving on data moving forward. Look, I'm just going to pause there. I've had a couple come through with no audio. So Rainier, Lou, could everyone just confirm that they can hear me okay in the feed? That'd be great. Yeah, so I'm just pausing for a moment because a few of you have mentioned that you can't hear things okay. Yep, so Dave, Nicole, Patrick, Greg, Jarleith, Grant, or lots of you coming through. Thank you so much. There are a couple with some audio problems that are coming through. So look, if that's the case, potentially reconnect is the blue button on the bottom. I'll mention that in chat just so you at bottom, and that might get a few of you back with audio. Let's move ahead. There will be a recording posted of this later, so I'll definitely distribute that out to those who are having troubles with audio. Look, the way that we do things at Ripe House, we try and take people on a journey. So we start at the state level, we try and put things in context there, but if we leave it there, we might be put off the scent in some way. So if you're looking at data or information referred to you around the state being past its prime, past the peak, in the slowdown phase or boom conditions, you're talking too general. You need to drill down to a local government area level and then a suburb level, because councils can have their own dynamic. They can be moving in a different direction and they can be next door to each other. So states are great for having a little bit of context. We need to look a little bit deeper and look at the council area. What type of demand supply conditions are there? What type of projects are on the go? What types of supply side issues are there? Putting that in context, then taking a deep dive, which are the number one suburb or top suburbs to look at in that local government area. Once you've found one or two, taking a deeper dive into the street and then into the property and making sure we're appraising the property for that suburb and condition. That's what Ripe House is all about. We've really built out the Ripe House platform. We're calling it the Ripe House Property Insights Platform. It's a powerhouse of information that we've packaged up in some really unique and interesting ways in the last few months, and opening it up tonight for you. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to demonstrating it to some of our users on the line who are current Ripe House users. So yeah, I suppose the Ripe House way of doing things is slightly different. So a traditional investor might be looking at the real estate portals, looking through the classified listings online, looking at the media, talking to friends at barbecues, etc. Completely wiping off whole entire markets because of a sweeping generalisation when there could be gold hidden within. Ripe House is all about timing the market, picking that growth cycle and riding that through to a market peak, then potentially moving growth and equity you've built up into another investment in another timed market investment. We like to look at things that might detract from demand and growth potential for a property. So looking for where public housing might be located, we can help you with that at a street level across the whole of Australia. Looking for any localised dead spots, poor locations based on amenities. Once we've found a real sweet spot in the suburb, if you can remember, 21.9% is what you can expect in terms of growth in relative terms above and beyond the suburb overall. You then have to match the right property to that street, to that suburb, and to your strategy. We at Ripe House like to access the whole nation to find the standout suburb candidates at any one time, and then time those markets and buying them correctly. That's what it's all about at Ripe House. It's a unique way of doing it. It's leveraging data and potentially a way of investing that looks towards the future and how things might be done in 10 or 15 years to really give us results today. So I did mention the Ripe House sweet spot. How can we seek out these locations? Over the 3 months, we run some research to prove our assumptions and to make sure our combination of factors is correct. This is always improving, and it's always moving forward to show that it is correct. But in just those 3 months, for every suburb across Australia, if you bought in a sweet spot location, which is around 10 or 15% of each suburb, I can show you how to find those in a minute, you would have achieved, in relative terms, 21.9% more capital growth than the rest of the suburbs. So over 10 years, in the average market in Sydney, looking into the future, it's potentially an extra $240,000 in equity in your pocket. And that's phenomenal. That's a game changer. That's just in the same suburb, choosing the streets that are going to deliver you that growth. And the longer that time period, that's only 10 years, and you've got 240K in expected equity gains over throwing a dart at the suburb and buying any property. So a couple of factors that we might look at Ripe House, we've got an amazing database of current and previous for sale and sold listings, but we've also got the concentrations and locations of key amenities. So we looked at the relationship between those things and the locations of them and price and demand, and we worked out that the big three are literally the transport, schools and shopping. So things like cafes, parks, medical facilities, restaurants, etc. They may have an effect. It's not a wide effect or consistent effects across the whole country, and it might, as an example, apply to owner-occupiers or small segments of the market. But the big three that apply to a mass market across Australia is definitely transport, shopping and schools. Just really quickly, around that kilometre band from a key transport hub is prime. It's walking distance. You don't have the noise associated with trains, etc. 250 metres away from the closest school is perfect. You don't have the school bell ringing or congestion. And out to 12 to 1,300 metres for shopping is okay, and above that average price or expected average price. So another factor that we can look at is public housing concentration. So we have the percentage of public housing on every street across the country. Expect to pay 25% more than the average if there's 0% public housing in your street or street of interest for your next investment. And if there's 18% more or more public housing in that street, expect to pay 20% less than the average. So a very big impact on appraised value and demand for property based on what is around it. When we talk about the Ripe House sweet spot, so combining all of these things on the positive side, we want to look for a street that at the same time has low public housing, lots of the in-demand property type, so lots of three-bedder houses if that's what's in demand, higher than average rent, high tenant demand and high yield. That's a really unique combination. It usually is about 10 to 15% of each suburb across Australia. Some suburbs don't have any, but it's really stepping you in good stead for above average growth going forward. So let's just jump right in. We'll start analysing some data and getting into some research and talking about my observations of the market going into 2016. Just really loosely, we'll start state of the states. We'll then drill down into some LGA versus LGA data. We'll explore the nation, and then we'll get to 3 freebie suburb recommendations, which are derived from the Pinpoint Predictions 2016 report. So I'm just going to change screens. While I'm doing that, I'm going to set another poll up because we've found out a lot of you are calling in from New South Wales. One moment while I get this going on. Now we want to find out where potentially are you looking to invest. So is what I'm talking about relevant? I might need to skew things if you're all looking at potentially investing in another area. Let's look where everyone's potentially looking to invest, and then we can work from there. So jump right in, and I'm going to change my screen over. So it won't be a second. Okay, so Queensland is where the attention is drawn towards. So 40% of you looking at Queensland, 21% New South Wales, 27% in Victoria, 2% WA, 5% ACT, 2% looking down in Tassie at the moment. So a little bit of a difference compared to where you're living. So there's a lot of you potentially looking in different locations outside to your home state. So sorry, Greg, that you can't select multiple locations. Chuck them in here, and I can get back to that later. Colin's mentioning that he's looking to invest wherever the best returns are, irrespective of state. Greg's looking at Queensland, Victoria, South Australia, and regional New South Wales, so nice variety and spread there. Lorraine's looking at flipping. Can we have a look at that potentially later, which I'll jump into, Lorraine, and talk through that. And there's a few of you that are asking about specific options already. So definitely bring the questions through, and I can get to those one-on-one at the end of the session. If you've got any questions about the data, research, particular areas, etc., definitely happy to answer them. I am going to try and stick to 9 o'clock tonight as a bit of a deadline with a bit of a Q&A afterwards, and I will be aware of time and how long things are taking with that. So okay, what we can see in front of us is a new page that we've just launched at Ripehouse. So those of you that are already using Ripehouse, there is a new tour button in your pages. That then takes you to more of a landing page. This sort of directs you visually through the different resources that you can access. You can start with state level research. At the top, you can go down into the local government areas and start analysing things there. You can go into our new Explore page, which is we're really proud of this visual way of representing a suburb's health. You can take a dive over here if you're really into the numbers. You love looking at the data and wading through that. You can take a dive over here to some really hardcore metrics pages that we've put together with lovely graphs, and it's actually all of our data sets presented visually for you to go through and check out. It's the basis of a lot of our health checks, property clock, algorithms, etc. Then you can go into the street. You can do our street level analysis using our map-based tool, find the sweet spots, filter properties in those sweet spots, so you can get in down to the real key properties that are on the market at any one time. Then you can take those in to your My Property list, and you can appraise them and get an accurate understanding of the value of them. So let's start at the state of the states. This is a new page at Ripehouse released this week. What we're doing now is this is live data. We're not looking at a property clock from last year. We're not looking at an article written about a property clock last year. We're looking at literally today live property clock information. Our focus at Ripehouse these days is all about providing a finger on the pulse, not regurgitating, being a primary source of the key information you need to make your decisions. And we're trying to provide it to you in multiple ways. So here we can see a table, which is the actual raw data. We have algorithms in the background that will turn this raw data and a few other things that we can't see here into a property clock recommendation. And the real key to this is when you see a suburb move through the clock, and you can also see the recent 90-day rolling growth in each state as well. The real key here is Look, I'm sure a lot of you read in the media that Sydney's past its peak and New South Wales is then put into the same basket as Sydney, etc. Now, each state that we're talking about is comprised of capitals and regional areas. New South Wales as an aggregate, as a state level observation, is firmly in the growth phase still. So it's here at about 10 o'clock on the property clock, which is still buying time. You know, Queensland's at 10 o'clock on the buying clock. Brisbane itself is, but Queensland overall is, and that's still relative buying time in terms of you've got some great opportunity for growth there in the next 1 to 3 years. New South Wales as an aggregate is still at 10 o'clock as well. Areas like Victoria has moved all the way through to 3 o'clock with a slowdown in Melbourne, but you've got some key regional areas, and one of the most outstanding markets in the country at the moment is in Victoria, outside of Melbourne. So even at 3 o'clock on the property clock, you've still got some great markets that are over here when we look at a local government area level. So let's do this. We can click on any of these states, and that will take us through to explore each local government area in the country in that state, or we can do the whole country at once. And this is opening the hood up. This is amazing insight into some really powerful data. Just going through it quickly, we've got, this is all 90-day rolling data, and once again we've got the heartbeat up here on the top, which denotes that this is live. There's no delay in this. This is not 2015 data. This is today. We've got some really quick look information about what's happening in the market, any 90-day growth figures, etc. You've got to be a little bit careful because you've got some sample size issues in some of the smaller local government areas. But this is the real key. So we're starting to see a health check for each local government area. We're looking at sales volume health. Is sales volume at a high point in the cycle, and has it been trending upwards consistently? Days on market health, is it been trending downwards consistently towards a nice low point in the cycle, and is it at an accessible point? So we don't want to be investing in markets that are very, very hot at low days on market, or very, very cold on high days on market. Days on market needs to be nice and accessible in relative terms. And we like to see yield at a high point in the cycle, potentially showing that there's undervaluing going on in the market where growth is about to occur on the back of high yields. And we like to see a nice, consistent yield trend upwards. So those things are a quick health check. We have some amazing algorithms in the background that is dissecting all this live and providing you property clock information for each local government area across the country at any one time. And we've also got some unique technology here where we aggregate sentiment and opinion in the media and from experts on the ground, buyers agents, sales agents, valuers, real estate institute members, etc., that we talk to and interview, and then also go out and gather sentiment from news and media, and we put that on a number against each local government area. So you can see if there's interest, if something's on a radar for others in the market very, very quickly. So just in doing this, you can play around with minimum and maximum price and yield, etc. You can look at individual states, but I just wanted to demonstrate to you, if we order things in terms of the property clock, we've got a lot of 2s on the property clock, and a lot of those local government areas are firmly in middle to upper market Sydney. So the big call I'm making now is anything that's in middle to upper market Sydney is already in the slowdown and trough phases. It's probably not news to many. We've got Hunters Hill, Sydney, North Sydney, Canada Bay, Strathfield, Botany Bay, Ryde, Randwick, Burwood, Waverley, Willoughby, Lane Cove, Pittwater. A huge amount of the middle to upper market Sydney is at that slowdown phase. What we can do now is we can set our buying criteria. So I want to look at 8 to 10 o'clock on the property clock. I want to be a little bit sure that we're definitely past 6 o'clock and past the indecisive sort of nature of a market at that point. We're into 8 o'clock. We've got some really strong signs of recovery and pending growth. And we've still got some reasonable growth upside to the market peak. So 10 o'clock's about a maximum limit. I like to see a market that has a 3 out of 6 or above rating. A 3 out of 6 rating for the health check. A few of you have actually come through and mentioned just quickly that the visuals are a little bit blurry. Try reconnecting at the bottom of the page, and potentially when I do switch slides, there's a short delay while things buffer and the quality of the image does improve again. That might be a problem intermittently. If it's still happening over the period of a few minutes, potentially refreshing a browser and that will refresh the connection. It might be an issue with internet connection, etc., but there will be a recording going out afterwards, which is always very good in terms of quality. So that will be coming. So what we've got here is we've got some filters going on. We've got 3 out of 6 is our minimum requirement for health check between 8 and 10 o'clock on the property clock. I like to personally set 150 days on market as my maximum. And we can now see we've got a short list of suburbs. So we've still got a few suburbs in Sydney coming through. We've got, sorry, this is local government areas in Sydney coming through. So we've got Ashfield, we've got Bankstown, Blacktown, Camden, Campbelltown, Canterbury, Fairfield, or Leichhardt is a high price point. Coringa is a high price point in Sydney that is still at 9 o'clock on the property clock. So you've still got some, there's a bit of a pattern around lower market, lower socio, lower price point Sydney. It's still faring quite nicely. You might be sort of seeing quite low yields in a lot of these suburbs that are in Sydney. So the next thing that we can do potentially to order things is to hit on the opinion. That's going to give us a list of local government areas that are potentially ordered in terms of yeah, this would be my definitive list almost. I might start with Newcastle. It's got reasonable yields at 4.6%, and it does have 4 ticks in terms of the health check. And this is going to now take us to our new page, which is the, we call them radar charts. It's a visual way of representing the health of a suburb. What we've done then is we've drilled down into one particular local government area, and now it's visually presenting the health of each suburb in this local government area. It's putting them in relative terms. So Merewether, according to this, is #1, all the way down to these red-coloured, small shaped suburbs right down the bottom that might not have much going for them at the moment. So what this is doing, is looking at 5 metrics that we're gauging the health and future growth prospects of a suburb. Once again, at a similar fashion to the local government area level, we're judging opinion and sentiment in a suburb, and we're giving a rating of that out of 100. We're looking at the key metrics, so we're doing the same health check that we performed at a local government area level. We're now doing it at a suburb level, so we have those same ticks or crosses. I'm going to click on this advanced metrics button, and that's going to refresh in the background. It takes a few seconds, and I'm going to keep talking to this. This is a unique number now we're attaching to every suburb across Australia, and it's giving you the interest in this suburb by other investors like you. Now, this is amazing data. It's unique to Ripe House. We've got a huge data, a group of you guys now using the software, and we can see some really interesting patterns emerging by the areas that you're actually looking at. So the higher this number is on a suburb, the more interest there is from other investors like you, potentially living in New South Wales, living in Victoria, looking towards Queensland. This is the finger on the pulse of you guys, not other owner-occupiers, not other investors who are looking to invest around the corner, etc. This is the finger on the pulse for other investors. Investability, the higher the score there, it means that there's more stock currently available for sale in the Ripe House sweet spots, and those properties are also in demand. And the income is what is the yield of the suburb, and is that yield accessible? So do we have reasonably low vacancies and reasonably stable rental volumes? That requires and represents the income number. So what we can see here, Merewether is faring really nicely. We've got great sentiment, we've got awesome metrics, we've got good investability and income, and it hasn't hit many of your radars yet. So you might be able to make that first mover move into this market. The research metrics page is loaded in the background. So this is once again the heartbeat on live data. You can filter by all houses or units. And this is an absolute finger on the pulse for some really key information around the suburb. So we can see by quarter for sale prices, by quarter yield. We can see by quarter sales volumes. So we can see an uptrend here over the last 7 or 8 quarters with 1 or 2 exceptions. Nice strong uptrend of sales volume growth. We can see days on market, so we're at a sort of midpoint in the cycle. It is just trending downwards recently. We can see some really cool things here. If you want to get really into this, you know, if you're into your stock market appraisals, etc., stock charting, this is trying to touch on the same techniques. And you can once again see your health check there for the suburbs. So that's another page that we're just releasing. You can also do your normal map-based deep dive into our suburb map analysis pages, which I will do in a moment. I'm just going to pause things there for while we're doing that, and before we take the deep dive. So lots of you, 39% looking in Queensland, 26% in Victoria, 24% in New South Wales. I'm just going to ask quickly, how many investments potentially are you planning in 2016? So let's get a bit of a feel for, are you guys looking at investing right now? Are we looking at more of a longer term outlook? And how many properties are we potentially looking at buying in 2016? So that's come up on your right-hand side while I'm just switching back to the slides. So it won't be a moment there. Okay, beautiful. So I've changed now back to the slides, 2016 predictions. We've gone through Merriweather. There is another 2 suburbs as freebie giveaways for our standout growth stories for 2016. It looks like 48% of you are looking to buy 2 properties in 2016. So that's awesome. We're looking towards some ramping up our investing in the year to come. We've got 2% of you looking at purchasing 10 or more. 6 to 10, 3%, 4 to 5, 4%, 3 properties in the next year is at 12%, 1 property at 33%, and none of you are planning to purchase no properties. So we're all in the buying zone. Let's work together. I'm really pumped to help and keep providing these types of webcasts and content for us to work together and potentially dissect areas together and purchase successfully in the next year. So I'll end that there. Just before I keep going and disclosing the next couple of suburbs, I've got an offer coming over on the right-hand side of the screen there. So Ripehouse is a subscription service. We look to open up our data, our research and tools to empower you as DIY property investors. This is a little bit of information from some other guys who use Ripehouse in different fields as researchers, educators, buyers agents and investors. And some of the great feedback that they've given us whilst using our tools and research. What you can see on the right-hand side of your screen is a really special offer for you tonight for coming along, and a big thank you. Ripehouse is normally $797 per annum, which is everything you've seen tonight and more. There's more to come. There's another 2 suburbs that I'll be taking you through, and we haven't even touched on the street or property level research tools. And we haven't gone into some amazing new strategy level search tools that you can use to find amazing suburbs for you. But this is a $200 discount, and it's available to 11 o'clock tonight only, bringing the annual subscription down to $597. And best of all, as part of this offer for coming along tonight, I'm opening up my time with you one-on-one with coaching via Skype to get you started with the software and get you on the way to buying up to 10 properties in 2016, but definitely getting you over the line and really confident with selecting some individual properties to purchase next, and obviously using the software and research tools to do that. You'll also receive a free copy of the Pinpoint Predictions report, which is going to be priced in the market at $97. And you're also going to be, as this annual subscription, access to our club access. So you'll be receiving invites to the research reports before the general public as a club member. You'll also be receiving private invites to ongoing webcasts and predictions and case study nights where we open the floor up completely and as an involvement with the coaching, etc. So amazing benefits and added on extras as a big thank you for tonight. If you wanted to lock that in right now, you can click on the subscribe button on the right-hand side of your screen. That will then take you through to the bonus page on Ripehouse. You can then click on the Get Started button. It will pre-fill that with a coupon code, which will give you that $200 discount. The URL there is www.ripehouse.com.au/bonus. For any of you that are existing, yes, the offer is completely available to existing members. to then move over this discounted offer going forward into your next period, and all the added extras that will be included on that if you do take it up. So definitely available. Yeah, it's just my way of saying thank you. I'd love to get you involved in processing and digesting the research together with me, one-on-one, but also part of the Ripe House Club Access. So we're doing this together, and we'll set regular events where we can digest the report. Why don't we say we'll set another one up in 2 weeks' time, just as a private access, members-only club access group. If for those who take the offer up, it will be only sent out as an invite to digest in minute detail. We'll go through every single local government area and suburb recommendation in the February edition of Pinpoint Predictions. We'll go back in Q&A format. It might take an hour or two, but we'll go through them all and try and match them individually to where you're trying to invest. So let's do that and make a commitment for 2 weeks' time. But before we do that, let's take a deep dive into 2 more outstanding growth candidates. And Moorefield is right up there, potentially at our #1 suburb and #1 local government area in the country at the moment. Outstanding metrics, outstanding opinion and sentiment in the market. It's our #1 LGA in terms of demand and inquiries through Ripe House. Moorefield stands with a couple of other suburbs in the local government area, but Moorefield really stands out for providing excellent opportunities to buy and still successfully potentially negotiate under market and at a discount to asking price, which is not the same. Same can't be said for some markets that are coming towards the peak, like the Logans, etc., where you're finding it difficult to negotiate. You might be having to pay over asking. You might be in the market with a few other investors, etc. Days on market is low. These are the types of things that you see when markets have got a lot of heat in them. Moorefield, Moreton Bay is just that one step behind, still very accessible, but some great growth fundamentals. John, I will get that Canberra suburb for you. Do remind me once I've in the Q&A section, I'll dig it up for you. Yeah, let's jump in. I'll jump back into the tools and we'll do some analysis of Moorefield. But I'm going to first show you how I got to it and teach you those tools as well, because that's very important. We can't just give you a suburb recommendation and use it as gospel. We're going to show you exactly how we came to it. And to that end, I'm going to talk about our radar. Explore the Nation page is what we call it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to reload the page here. This is going to give us a random selection by default. That's going to go across the nation and just pick 20 suburbs at random. And that's just giving you a bit of a taste for the different types of shapes, potentially some areas that are looking okay. Just a bit of a sample around how to use the page. So this is just picked at random. What it's going to tell you is not all local government areas are big and green. Most of the suburbs across the country, so 80–90% of them are actually small and red with not much going for them. One way that we can really find the key locations at any one time is by using the defined strategy buttons over here on the left-hand side of the page. We can then click on our big green strategy. Now, a big green strategy is high in all metrics. It's got some amazing fundamentals in the market. It's caught on, and it's in the crosshairs of experts in the field and local experts. And it's also in the crosshairs of interest. So lots of other investors using the Ripe House platform are already looking there and potentially buying. So what Big Greens is for, it's for a market that's showing growth already, great fundamentals and demonstrating future growth, but you're also buying with some other investors. So you've waited for that groundswell of interest to occur, and you might find a little bit of safety in those numbers. So at a Big Green strategy, these are the absolute standout candidates for this strategy across the country. The top 4 suburbs are actually in Moreton Bay. Then you go to a few in Brisbane. You've got one in Logan. You've got another in Brisbane there. So all through Brisbane area. First one outside of Brisbane is Frankston. City of Hobart, big shout out. I actually live in West Hobart. Look, just a really quick observation, and I'll make this point in a moment. Why don't I jump quickly across now? I do apologise for jumping, but a lot of people really quickly write off somewhere like Tasmania because it typically has high days on market data and numbers, where days on market is high as an average across Tasmania, but don't write it off or an area based on that big generalisation, because you've got to think a little bit deeper. And the population in Tassie is very spread out, which it is in a lot of our states. It's not really based in our two capital centres in terms of our two residence centres, Hobart and Launceston, and it's spread out quite evenly. So days on market in rural areas really affects the average days on market for the state and blows it out, where if you actually order things in terms of days on market, you can see that the city of Hobart itself has 85 days on market, which is great. You've got Burnie at 122, Clarence at 139, which is a suburban area of Hobart, so is Glenorchy. You've got Hobart sitting at 9 o'clock on the property clock, and there's actually a lot of experts and opinion and sentiment in the media that's biased now towards positive outlooks for Hobart. So I can say West Hobart is sitting on our national Big Green strategy recommendation. It's a very hot market, outstanding growth fundamentals here at the moment. So it's just trying to prime the idea that there is individual suburbs and local government areas that are at the time in the market to potentially be looking at across the country at any one time. So right up here at the top, we've got Caboolture South. Another way that we can look at this is by actually searching via the local government area itself. This is just going to go away and it's going to give us back those suburbs in the local government area, and a lot of green in this local government area. A lot of positive elements coming through Moreton Bay at the moment. Caboolture South is one that I know quite well. Moorefield is my other choice, which I am going to talk about tonight, and I am going to use it for purposes of illustration, just because it's a little bit larger and you've got some probably potentially more buying opportunities there at the moment, as opposed to Caboolture South, which is a smaller suburb, less properties and potentially less properties on the market. Moorefield offers greater opportunity to purchase successfully, and there's lots of interest and properties on the market in the sweet spot location. So let's use that tonight. This is one of those big suburbs I am holding my hat, putting my hat on and leading with. Another one which is in the report is Caboolture South, so that is covered in the report. While this loads, so this is introducing you to the main map-based analysis page. There's a wealth of tools and data that you can dig into at a street level in the suburb. So we're not going to leave you at a suburb level and go, just buy there, let's throw a dart at the board. We'll take you on a journey through each street. You can see some amazing things at a street level using this page. Things like occupancy type in Moorefield. Green means owner-occupiers. Owner-occupiers biased very heavily towards the south. Tenants biased very heavily towards the yellow areas here towards the main highway and in the north. Property type, lots of houses generally, very, very few units, but where the units are, they are along this main road again here. You can see exactly where the public housing is, so once again focused in around the train station, key amenities and around where potentially the units are and tenants. You can start to see some really cool correlations. So these are high rent areas, high yield, high income, and high yield. You can also do some suburb level comparisons. So if you're looking at Moorefield, you want to see how it compares to next door. How do yields compare, suburb versus suburb as an example? So very high yields in Moorefield, slightly lower in Upper Caboolture, etc. So an amazing resource, a visual and spatial representation of the suburb. Just relating things back to our research and 21.9% extra capital growth in a ripe house sweet spot. You can use this button really quickly to display a pop-up, display our capital gains sweet spot toggle. That's out of the 42 areas that are roughly 200 dwellings each across Moorefield. It's now gone through and set our tolerances for things based on that sweet spot definition. It's spat out the bottom 4 areas that are selected that pass muster. And these are our ripe house sweet spots in the suburb. You can apply that and then you can visually see them on a map. Now, there was a pop-up that appeared at the start when we loaded up the suburb that mentioned that 3-bedroom houses are currently the most in-demand property type. So I'm only interested in potentially investing in 3-bedroom houses. I will include a 4-bedder. Potentially I won't pay more for it, but I'm not going to rule them out in terms of the similar type of property. And now I just want to wade through the 148 properties that are currently on the market. We act like Google as a search engine. We go out and collate all current listings and we bring them together in one place. We provide you reference back to the original source in all cases, but we do bring them together like search results on a Google query. But what we do differently is we provide the smarts to get you from 148 properties down to 9 very, very quickly. You can see here, a few of them have been optimistically described by the agent as houses when they might be a lot, 31 of 51 as an example. But we can go down here to 6 Lamardia Drive, been on the market for 41 days. We can see some really nice details about the property in images. We have an algorithm that assesses the condition of the property based on how it's been described, how it's been positioned. You can see the full listing history and discounting history of the property. This one arrived on the 25th of December, funny day to list for sale. This is for every property on the market, and you can add properties in your current portfolio or off market and do the same analysis for. You can see some really quick look suburb level information, some street level information. We go away and we find valid comparables for you, and we put the power in your hands to curate those comparables and make sure that you are comfortable with them. If you find the property is inferior or superior, you can remove that, and it will inject in our 6th most likely comparable. And when you're comfortable with that, so you have total ownership of it. It's very simple. You have to be sure of your comparables that they are giving you a valid appraisal. That will then go through to our appraisal tab. It will average those. It will give you a little bit of context around the location of the property and apply any adjustments. So if this one's a little bit too far away from school, shopping, transport, or public housing, it slightly negative affect the value. And now, if you're in any way unsure of an appraisal that comes back, you can actually click on this Ask Lifehouse button, and that will come through to us on Twitter, which we'll get back to you as soon as we can around our thoughts. You can also put that into a report, print it off and take it with you in any sort of field trips or coffee table research that you might like to do outside of your session. But there's an amazing wealth of information on this page. You can see current rental properties, sold properties. You can view all of the sold data for each of them. That's going backwards. You can spend a lot of time in this page and a lot of gold in it. You can dig it as deep into it as you like, or you can just come right back. We do provide tools to allow you to automatically receive property recommendations. We provide, and the way that we operate is providing all of the data and different ways of analysing it that you might appeal to. But we like to make it really simple to use if that's all you'd like to do. If you'd like to see what we do and how we do it and have trust in that, we provide the reports and property lists, etc., to you as a simple way to invest in these areas. So there's definitely mixing and matching to what your requirements, time requirements are, and involvement levels that you want out of the software. There's different ways that you can use it. At any time, you can click on the live support button here in the bottom and ask us any questions. If you'd like us to help you in any way and give you guidance, find a property, appraise it, we can do that live using the live chat. And we also have a 1300 number up here if you've got any questions to come through to. Hold that thought, because at the end of it, as the part of the coaching, that's what I'm on hand to do with the special offer, is to help you use this software very quickly, very efficiently. And in an hour-long session on Skype, we can get out at the end of it individual properties that are passing muster for you. And I can even talk through potential advice around negotiation and appraisals, how to talk to the agent and how to leverage the information you're seeing to negotiate. So that's on hand, and part of the service is the one-on-one coaching with tonight's offer. So let's just jump back really quickly, because the third suburb that I wanted to look at is coming into a boomerang. We might be moving into a boomerang strategy now. And what a boomerang strategy is and how it differentiates from, I'll just refresh the page, how it differentiates from Big Green. Boomerangs haven't yet had the interest jump up. So what we're doing, we might be getting a sneak peek into where the interest is starting to move towards. The numbers look outstanding. There is positive sentiment and opinion out there, but you guys haven't caught on yet. So boomerang suburbs are those suburbs that represent that shape and that strategy. So you can see that the Belmont type suburb and the Christie's Beach type suburbs are boomerangs. They haven't started pulling down here in the interest category yet, but they're great usually on the other metrics. And they do, if you use your imagination, look a little bit like a boomerang. That's what we're talking about. The next suburb and hint that I'd like to give away tonight, and this is also covered in our Boomerang segment of our Pinpoint Predictions report. So we have a big green segment, we have a Boomerang segment, and we have an undercover segment. Is Belmont in Victoria. So it's a suburb of Geelong. It's giving great, outstanding metrics at the moment. Opinion is starting to move up, and nothing has hit in terms of interest from other guys yet. This is an outstanding potential investment area based on the numbers, based on what's going on down there, and sentiment is starting to move, and interest is looking like it's starting to move based on that Boomerang recommendation. So Belmont is the third sneak peek suburb tonight in Geelong. There's a huge amount, so we've had our researchers here putting together the information for the report, and Geelong itself just stood out in terms of the spend and variety of new projects coming online there. What we've also been seeing, and if you can cast your mind back to the New South Wales council by council data, Newcastle and Wollongong both scored very highly. So the one characteristic that I'm seeing is we've had great growth happening in Sydney and Melbourne recently, huge amount of growth there, and now the focus potentially is shifting to those satellite areas that support these larger cities that potentially people might be buying into to commute, living as tenants to commute. Standalone, they've got some great fundamentals going, and they suddenly seem very cheap compared to their larger neighbours. So Geelong sits with Wollongong, Newcastle, same sort of dynamic going on. So great numbers. Interest is starting to build in a lot of these suburbs, and Belmont is sitting here as the one standout for us in Geelong. That's the third suburb. I just wanted to quickly talk about an undercover suburb. So undercover suburbs, areas that the numbers are outstanding, hasn't yet really caught on in terms of any opinion, sentiment, and interest. Any of these could then progress into boomerangs and then into big greens. But at the moment, these provide amazing numbers plays. Just a bit of a quick hint, there's quite a few of them in South Australia at the moment. So not a huge amount of sentiment and opinion across the country for South Australia, not a huge amount of interest, but in a lot of these suburbs, there's great numbers. And the other one on here that we haven't talked about is a cash cow. These are your yield plays across the country. Outstanding cash flow. They can't be a basket case in terms of capital growth potential. They have to have some reasonable fundamentals there, and you have to be able to buy property, so investability needs to be reasonable as well. And the funny thing is, you're also seeing the same candidates. So outstanding big greens are also, in this case, outstanding cash cows. So great incomes in a lot of these Moreton Bay suburbs. So just a little bit of a hint. There's a whole wealth of information and suburb recommendations using these new tools. Let's pop this on pause. I'm just going to pop another quick poll up. Just the quick results from the last one. We've got the results in from how many investments are we planning in 2016. So the vast majority, 46% of the respondents are looking at 2. What would you say would be your next, your primary strategy for your next poll? If your option's not listed on here, which might be sea change or might be short-term accommodation, etc. There's a few options. Let me know in chat, but it'd be great to hear about how you potentially are looking to invest next, and try and find groupings of you guys together. So 41%, 43% buy and hold, 4% is cash flow as your primary motive, 26, 23, 22% flipping, development and split is at 21%. So an interesting insight there while I'm changing over slides. Sorry, I should have been doing that at the same time. Won't be a moment. Okay, we are moving up to 9 o'clock. I hope you have found the 3 suburb recommendations insightful and helpful. There's plenty more, as I said, in the price prediction, the Pinpoint Predictions February edition report. So look out for that this week. It is available off the shelf for $97, but once again, there's a big thank you for sticking around. There will be a question and answer session now, which we can open the floor up. As a big thank you, this special offer is only available until 11 o'clock tonight as a $200 discount off, bringing our subscription down to $597. And that includes one-on-one coaching with me personally via Skype, plus a free edition of the Pinpoint Predictions report for February, which is soon to come out, and as mentioned, that club access. So we're doing this webcast in 2 weeks for Only those guys who have subscribed will be going through this report intimately, one suburb at a time, matching it to where you're trying to go. I'll be using the tools with you together and taking individual area case studies. We can do it in a lot of detail together. That's going to be the first event. And then we will be sending to you the research as an option before the mass media, before it gets out there in PR, before it gets out there to other investors. So you'll have first access to this research going forward, and be able to digest it and potentially get in before the masses do join you afterwards. So that's all part of the club access. Once again, to lock this offer in, I'll turn it on the right-hand side of the screen. If we remove the poll, 52% of you buy and hold, a very strong bias towards buy and hold for you guys, which does suit what we've talked about tonight. And we'll remove that poll. That offer is once again on your right-hand side of the screen there. You can very quickly click on the subscribe button. That will take you through to www.ripehouse.com.au/bonus. On that page, you hit the Get Started button. That will then take you through to a pre-filled sign-up page with the coupon code all ready to go. You just have to enter your basic details. We use Stripe for our payment processing. Stripe is an amazingly secure, best practice global payment processing solution. It is very, very efficient at what it does. It's the only touch point on your credit information. We don't touch it. The security is very high between you and Stripe directly. At any time, we've got live chat, phone support, or email support, as mentioned. Let's pop things on. Let's pop things on pause, and I'll get through Q&As with what we're doing. So let's put things on pause here. I'll go onto this slide here with my contact details. I'll put things on mute very slightly, and we'll start taking some Q&As. For those of you that might not want to stick around, yeah, I really appreciate your time. I'll be sending a replay of tonight's proceedings through via email, so look out for that. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've found some insight and some value from what I've talked through tonight. Good luck investing. Good luck for those of you looking at getting 10+ properties. Good luck to those of you looking at purchasing your first property in 2016. I love talking and working with other DIY investors, and as myself as a DIY investor, let's do it. Let's bring on 2016. So I'll put things on pause for a moment, and I'll come back with some Q&A. Okay, coming back. Thanks for sticking around. I've got a lot of questions coming through before I take a deep dive into the individual areas that you might be asking questions about and commentary. A few of you are existing subscribers. This offer is definitely available to you to take up and move across to at the price point starting from today, moving forward for the next year, and it will include the coaching report and club information. So that's definitely available, and I can assist in transferring across to that, and moving your account over to this offer. That's not a problem at all. Moving down into some of the more in-depth questions. Adam's talking about software covering commercial zone properties. So we are integrating zoning data into the software. It's on our to-do list. That will help you filter properties based on their zoning information, but you can at the moment already filter properties based on lot sizes. So if you have a minimum requirement for your lot sizes, jump onto chat and we'll help you through using our, there's a particular page you can go to and filter properties based on their lot size. That can then help you with your commercial zoning requirements, etc. Yeah, a few of you are asking how long it takes to learn the program. So we have a private instruction and tutorial course that's opened up when you become a member that has 4 key videos that take you through some of the core functionality and how-tos. That's then accompanied by tutorial information and FAQs. So we have a help and support pages with a few of the key concepts and help available there. Perhaps the best way coming forward is the one-on-one coaching with me, asking any questions and working through them together via Skype, but then also jumping onto the live support and email support. So if you've got any little quick questions that you want answered straight away, generally we'll 9 to 5 is live support, up to around 10 o'clock is about a half an hour delay, and then outside of that it'll be first thing next morning we can get back to you with our thoughts. Yeah, that's the learning curve, and I guess if I'm comfortable with the one-on-one coaching for your first property, handing the reins over to me to take you through it, and that will get you a long way through for your subsequent property purchases to use the software. So Brendan's asked, is it houses or units that we should be looking at in Geelong? So what we're talking about is looking at what is the most in-demand property type in each particular suburb. So Geelong itself is probably not the right question. It's the individual suburb within. When the suburb loads in the suburb map analysis page, there's a little pop down from the top which will tell you how many properties are currently on the market that we've gone out, found and brought together as a search engine. It will also tell you which are the most in-demand and most common properties at the time. They're the ones that potentially you should be sticking to. So if your strategy is really, you've had a lot of success or you really are stuck and very stern in looking at units in particular, you don't want to force your strategy onto a suburb, and you don't want to be buying a 2-bedder unit and putting short-term accommodation in there where there's very few or little demand for 2-bedder units in the suburb. You want to look for a suburb where that is the most in-demand property type. So it's more looking at the suburb, working out what is most in demand there, which Ripe House helps you with very easily, filtering those properties and then making sure you're comfortable with those properties to invest in. Also looking at flipping, a few of you have asked questions around flipping. So with flipping, you're not necessarily looking at capital growth in the long term, but you also want to get out of the market relatively quickly. So you can do some filtering around lower days on market. You want to be looking for suburbs that potentially have some old federation or a large discrepancy between unrenovated and renovated properties. One bonus suburb, which is actually covered off in the report, is Hamlin Heights in Geelong. So it has great market dynamics, great upside for capital growth based on the Geelong overall. But Hamlin Heights has a little bit of a more varied mix of properties. So you've got a lot of unrenovated federation properties that you can potentially come in, renovate and flip. And you're going to be selling in a rising market in all likelihood. So that will help you on the exit from it. Keep the questions coming, guys. Any predictions on suburbs in Melbourne, max price around 380? Look, I'm looking at the satellites. The one suburb that we do, so there's a suburb in Undercover, which is Caroline Springs. Around that in Morelands, great metrics, great fundamentals there. We have sort of previously covered off Epping and the Whittlesea LGA at that sort of price point. I've got some concerns around supply side issues there. Potentially looking down towards Frankston, that's looking great in the Boomerang strategy, which is at that price point. So you've already got some opinion there. You don't necessarily have a lot of investor interest, but you've got great market dynamics. Then potentially out over in towards Cranbourne. Rowan's asking best suburb to invest in Sydney. As mentioned, you're probably looking at that lower price points through those LGAs, Campbelltown, Blacktown, Bankstown, Penrith. Looking Campbelltown itself, you've got a lot of owner occupiers through that market, so it might sort of confuse things a little bit. Potentially Liverpool itself, then you have some supply side issues. There are some suburbs that come to mind. Blacktown itself, within the Blacktown LGA, looks reasonable. Potentially, yeah, it's a lot of focus on those satellites, so Newcastle and basically everywhere else in New South Wales. I can make that as a sweeping generalisation, but I'm talking all the way up to Tweed. Gold Coast is a phenomenal prospect at the moment. It's emerging as a boomerang at 8 o'clock on the property clock. But you've got Tweed on the northern New South Wales side, Coffs to a certain degree, Lismore, Port Macquarie, into Newcastle, Wollongong, and Albury, and a little bit over into Dubbo. So everywhere really outside of Sydney is still keeping New South Wales at that 10 o'clock on the property clock, but I'll be looking to some of those lower price points in Sydney. Yeah, Dave's mentioned Camden, Penrith he'll be looking at. Andreas has mentioned that Blacktown has already popped. Yeah, interesting insights. Blacktown as an LGA was one of those that I saw at sort of 10 o'clock on the property clock. So the suburb level dynamic I didn't jump into, which might have revealed some supply demand issues that are going on. So yeah, there's a few other generalised or very specific questions coming in. I might take those offline, and I can reach out to you individually. Steve's asking Broadbeach, Waters, Gold Coast. Let's take that offline, Steve. We've got two outstanding markets that we're looking at where the numbers look great, as potentially Coomera and Nerang. I'll have to dig up Broadbeach and do some numbers on that for you individually, because it's not popping to mind at the moment. But look, I really appreciate you coming along, and thank you for some really great Q&A and back and forth and questions. I can get back to you if you've got some specific questions or niche questions one-on-one. But I really thank you for your time. Let's stay in touch and stay tuned for further webcasts going forward. And I can't wait to start investing with you guys and working with you into 2016. So let's go forward and do this.